Hello, and welcome to Orion Spear Point. How is everybody doing on this beautiful day in this time of deep purification? It's taken me some time to actually harmonize a little bit, but yes, how is everybody doing? And if you haven't got a chance to watch it, I would definitely recommend beautiful conversation with my dear brother, Mauricio. Every time I see him, it's always just a huge bright light that he is. So that was incredibly fun. But yes, how is everybody doing? Because this does feel like a deep kind of purification, recorrection since the 7778 portal with the establishment and the new roots. So a lot coming into form and purging and activating and surging and from masculine and feminine, and a lot coming into being. Um, so before we jump in, I wanted to give a brief update. If you have subscribed to my newsletter and you're not getting them, reach out to me and we'll see if we can correct it. It could be in your spam folder, or it could actually be the email itself. I've Some emails actually separate priority from all mail. So it could be in, you just switch the settings to all mail and it could be there. But if you are subscribed and you're not receiving them, reach out to me and we'll try and figure it out. Um, what else? Yes, there was so it's up now on my Calendly and I'll link it down below. So the first kind of session that I'm offering through Calendly, more to do with the masculine energy. But the more I kind of feel into it, it does feel kind of more tuned in to the masculine energy. However, it is equally um, beneficial to the feminine energy as well, the feminine collective. But that one is going to be, I labeled it, yeah, that's funny. I labeled it ascending from the wars. So that felt very true to me, and it was actually ascending out of the framework of that good versus evil fight. So that felt like the actual inception from the fall, and then the submitting to the purification fires, which actually leads into this video. And then lastly, I want to give a lot of love and a shout out to Allison. She reached out and I realized in the last couple of videos before my talk with Mauricio, there was this time when I was describing the masculine collective as kind of like a disc shaped oval, and how when it's spinning, when it's hitting that wave from divine of activation, it's like spinning and it's an oval. So that's where you will see like the actual lead in to a lot of these activations, and it will take some time. However, every time I tried to say, or I thought I was saying oval, I was actually saying opal. So if you feel called to work with that stone, whether I think it's actually in whatever way you feel called, but in the current way I'm actually feeling it, it could be if you're dealing with some dense energies to do with masculine energy, maybe if you feel the call to work with some of that um, opal, and then going to the masculine collective with that. So, without further ado, we will jump in. This should be, I don't know, this could be a divine masculine. Is it initiation or is it just a check in? No, it's an initiation. All right. So we will do another divine masculine initiation video. And we'll jump into there. So without further ado, we'll open the door and jump in. Okay. So leading into this and activating from the garden, right? my sense, well, this is, yeah, to do with the masculine and feminine energies, the collectives themselves, and the dance that they're playing, right? So it's this kind of, it is this new dance, right? Because the masculine has reached this point, and then there's this kind of refamiliarization from the feminine to the masculine. Because now, like, the masculine energy has an opportunity set before it to set in some actual standards, which hasn't really been the case before. So, and it is kind of this new energy between masculine and feminine. Like, how do they meet? It's this new form of refamiliarization, because as much as the masculine holds for the feminine, it's equally the feminine holds for the masculine, and just in different pockets in different ways. It's how the two actually dance more and more and more together. So there is this new point now, stepping into the garden and then retrieving and holding those codes that the divine, because the garden actually, the more I've like said that word and the more I've come accustomed to it, it is actually like the divine feminine of Mother Earth, right? That's who's holding it, right? That's the crystalline core. That's what you're stepping in. That's what she holds, right? So it's stepping on that and then harmonizing more and more. Now, what I became aware of is that there was something else that was coming into form, which was this actually the purification of the that is taking place. So, what is this purification, right? So, I've experienced this a couple of different times. So, it's a lot to do with, I've always experienced like deep purification as fire. But there's two different places that are pure, that hold the holy fire, we'll say that. And it is the molten core of the mother, and it's the sun. So what I was feeling is that it depends on where you're getting called to go. This one, I really want to open up and say the sun. And this is how it felt to me. There's the energy. So going into the core of the sun, and then feeling that the fire and the love, but also the purification flames of the masculine actually burning, and feeling that as it comes up, because it's actually meeting the warrior essence, and also the self-protective mechanisms of the masculine that have been also warped into the protective mechanisms of the masculine as well. So this is a lot of the protector force, right? So this is going to be how that's gotten warped and actually entombed and entrenched and entangled in a lot of the wars as well. So the constant one I keep coming back to is like the good versus evil. It's an endless fight. So like actually retrieving out of that, but you need to go through the purification process. So, and this is when we're dealing with, oh yeah, this is delicate and this is unfamiliar too, because it's like that warrior essence and the familiarization with conflict, and how that feels so natural to the system, and the adherence to the necessity of it, that it's necessary for things. And this is why that makes sense. This is why you have to like step first, your foot's hitting that divine access point in the divine feminine garden of Mother Earth. Like that's actually hitting your system, because that's actually showing first where that's been mutilated, and then actually where that doesn't ring true, because what's pure can never die, right? So seeing that, and then actually realizing that the more you enter into that battlefield, it continues. It's a paradox. So seeing that, there's the energy, following that into the sun, basically, because the sun I've always experienced as a very masculine energy, but holds something so dear, right? So the fires of that and the potency and the way it just shines, right? So the love and the presence is there and the potency is there as well without the battle or the conflict energy. It is just a point of presence. And that is something different. So, like, actually walking into the sun is burning off all that, but you have to submit to it. So, it is that kind of coming into, yeah, yeah, there it is. Actually, coming with your warrior essence, actually, that has been entrenched into some of those conflict energies. And the real like adherence to it, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is also like those things are wrapped up in your self-protective mechanisms, and those self-protective mechanisms actually morph as protective mechanisms. So like you're self-protecting your presence yourself, but it's masked as protective for others. So it's this kind of martyr role, but it's not it's not like the energy just doesn't run. It kind of feels like it's all janky. Like it just hits a wall and then it has to go left, and then it hits another wall and it has to go right. And it just doesn't flow. And it is this kind of like how it feels to me is this really small kind of like engagement. I'm just like, okay, like this is what we do. And submitting to the fires and burning that off and letting go of the wars. So a lot of times when you go into conflict, it is actually the the thing you're holding on to so dearly is the wanting to protect something out of love, right? And when it warps, you lose sight of that. But that core thing is what holds on to. So actually the fires is going to directly hit that point that is so dear, but also looking at where you have held on and it's become unbalanced. And this could be very, very triggering, actually. And in some ways, it's a death. It does feel like, in a lot of ways, it is actually a death that is occurring because it's stepping, it feels like you're actually like submitting to and then accepting defeat, which isn't actually true, but it can actually feel like that 100% because what you're doing is you're stepping away from the battlefield. But, you've been locked in this conflict trying to hold the line. So if you step away, that line weakens and you're just looking at it and being like, what, that's not correct, right? That can actually surge within your system. But if you, by going into deeper and deeper into the divine and into those fires, and that's what's being asked, then it is stepping away because the battles are actually a distraction. They're pulling you out of that point of coming into more of your presence. So this is going to be the fires of love that actually bring up and look at and then allow yourself to be seared to actually come more deeper into that presence. And through the fires in the sun, it holds a big piece of that masculine charge. Like, I'm not doing it justice. Like, actually, it holds a big, big code framework of the masculine essence. So going into that is burning it off to retrieve it, to actually hold that presence. And by doing that presence, that makes sense. By doing the presence, so stepping away from the battlefield, going into the sun, burning all that off, and then retrieving that essence. When you're able to hold that, the thing that you were always doing within the conflicts, so the battles, the wars, the et cetera, et cetera. So like the objective, the devotion energy, the need to do that and accomplish that mission, basically, by stepping away, by going through the purification process, by leaving the battlefield, and then being able to hold that presence now that was gifted from the center of the sun. Guess what? That presence, that objective that you're always seeking to achieve, now that point is held by your field. And it's actually looking at your field, not your actions, as the thing that is the point of presence within reality. Yeah, but if I do this and this and this, if I don't do this, then, things fall apart. And just like, but your point of presence is actually the meeting point of reality. Like you're another point of reality. So by retrieving that essence, that's why it's so important to do, but why it's actually a little bit scary to do that, because there is this point of just like, I don't want to cause harm by removing myself out of this. This is the devotion energy and the that's so near and dear to the masculine energy, because it's been within this conflict, this battle for so long, since the fall. You can look at this, and it's actually like harmonizing and actually nurturing and bringing back the warrior essence. We're not neutering the warrior essence. We're actually bringing it to a state that it's never been. We're embodying it fully by actually exiting the wars. Because the moment you enter, you fragment that battlefield. And it's actually a looking at it as a no longer needing to be on the battlefield, because your point of presence harmonizes and there's nothing that can really enter that. It's actually holding that line. The thing that you always wanted to do by entering the battlefield, by holding that point of presence with the codes now retrieved from the center of the sun, going through the purification process, that actually holds it. And by doing this, you can hold so much more. But the purification process and the fires are actually going to burn off all that stuff that has, because conflict and battle and all that stuff is so intimate. So the more you fight against something else, the more it actually merges with you. And not to say that like it's actually burning off all that stuff that has been within your field that you're trying to contain, and it's just burning it off and letting your presence, your focal point from the center of the sun, to become a sun walker. That's a term I coined up, but it was actually like being and reflecting a sun, the codes from the sun as a point of presence. Potency in the fire, but so much love and so much shining. And, you're holding a point of presence. So that, retrieving that and submitting to the fires is the way forward. Not getting ensnared in the constant battles within or without, or in the energies. This can be all of the above. This can be in your internal masculine. This can be your masculine energy as a whole. But it is actually retrieving that. So the fragmentation and the all that kind of stuff, but also the devotion energy, we understand that, why it's there, but we're going back to the source, to the sun. We're going back to the father, the energy, to harmonize that, to bring it to the table and actually really embody what that means. That's the process, going into the sun. retrieving that and then actually seeing how that changes. Because by holding that line, reality and your presence and your life can actually change. More can come in, and the dynamic between masculine and feminine can change as well, because like the more you do this, the more like the masculine energy like embodies more and more of that true essence from divine, right? Going through all this purging and then being able to hold that, right? The energy in some ways have been held in different places by, masculine or feminine. So there's certain pockets within reality that, while the feminine was entombed or ensnared or some point or thing, the masculine has held that point of presence, right? What it was it's not its job to hold that, but it has, right? And then when the feminine reaches a point, like the masculine releases that, the whole thing comes back into balance because the feminine's more embodied. Same here, right? The feminine has held a point of presence while the masculine has been entrenched in this. So the more you do this, the more release happens, the more that things can come into balance, the more relief, because it's relief on both sides. The feminine doesn't have to hold that line anymore, a point of presence from divine, while the masculine engages in the grimy wars, right? And the masculine doesn't have to submit or walk into that battlefield because the point of presence is beyond that. They don't touch it. And holding that. Can you feel how the entire framework changes reality itself, life, by holding that? And the balance between masculine and feminine. It's big and it's beautiful. So okay, I will leave it here. If you feel called, I'll link the Calendly down below. And of course, I have other sessions below. Or if you feel called to look at the website, that is there as well. But in this time of purification, because I think it came up with my talk with Mauricio, we were talking about the Nualas from Mayan, and it was going to be these 10 days of death and rebirth. And so it does feel like a potent time, supportive in the best way. So, and then the perseverance kind of meditation that came out of that was totally from divine. Like neither one of us had any idea that was going to come in, but that felt so important in this time of purging or death, that it's the perseverance through into the new. So with that honor, I give you a lot of love, and I give you a lot of love. Take care and shine bright.